Hey, welcome to Chattel Fixtures PEI Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, David Cyrus MacDonald. On this episode, we have Adam Perry. He's a filmmaker whose feature film, A Small Fortune, played at Cineplex and won international awards. And with his new company, he could film your property on PEI. We talk with him about the filmmaking process, about establishing narrative, about making your home look beautiful, about preparing your home for the photo and video shoot for your listing. If you want to learn more about that, stick around. I think this is a great conversation with Adam Perry. Adam Perry is a filmmaker on PEI whose feature film, A Small Fortune, won Best Screenplay at the Manchester International Film Festival, and the National Post called it a tightly written, expertly shot, and well-crafted story. Full disclosure, I'm a bit biased because I have an executive producer credit on the film. Adam has been telling stories since he was 13, I believe, starting off as a comic book artist, then making animation, and eventually he found his home in making films. I'm a huge fan of his earlier work like Profile PEI, his music videos like Hat by the band Raccoon Bandit, his hilarious lesser-known short sketch videos like Three Eternity Christmas 93.
That's due for a re-release very soon.
Yeah. Adam has also worked filming Chef Michael's Kitchen and Food Country. But one thing some Islanders may not know about Adam is that through the years, he has also taken on work in the world of real estate. I am so excited to talk about filmmaking, creative stories, and narratives, and how that can apply to creating compelling listings. Welcome, Adam Perry.
Thanks for having me here between these plants.
And
the curtain and the MacDonald painting. It's
thank you.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. This is I think with the plants, I guess Zach Galifianakis would be proud.
I'm proud.
You're proud.
Yeah.
I was actually
I mean, that plant over there needs water.
Yeah, it's getting a little dry.
But yeah, so is this conversation.
Okay, what do you think of the set in general? What do you think?
I've been on better sets, but you know, for his podcasts, you don't usually record them with video. But since you are, I mean, kudos. This is working. It's good.
Hey,
you got
thank
what you need. Yeah.
Hey, right. Nice.
Really cool.
Nice,
really cool.
Nice. Thank you. So the first question I have written here is, I've been following your work for a while, and so much of your early work was so whimsical and odd and hilarious. I mean, Ponderings was one of those works with Jeremy Larder that turned out to be just friggin' funny and capture this weird side of personalities on PEI. What do you think drove you towards that kind of story?
Oh, I mean, you gotta draw from your environment, right? Whenever I look around, I see characters that I've known for my whole life, and after you meet enough of them, you start to realize there's some connection and some connective tissue between them, and that you start finding relatable characteristics between many of these people, and you can create a fictional character that is very relatable, and everybody kind of understands this guy or woman and knows who these people are, and I think that's kind of the secret to creating characters, no matter where you live.
Yeah,
is to pull from reality.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, do you ever look at any of the characters from those and think of like a very specific person?
Oh yeah, I mean, a lot of the characters that I've helped develop over the years are, you know, pulled from my family.
Right. So do they know that it's kind of about them? Some of those characters? I
mean, yeah, they probably do. I don't like ask their permission or anything like that, but you know, it's, you look at the local characters in A Small Fortune, they're all pulled, you know, exactly and precisely from my family or extended family. And it's like, I know these people, salt of the earth, and I love them. And it wasn't that far of a stretch to write these characters because I knew them so well. But also it's, you know, it's a lot of the earlier work is more on the comedy side. So it's a lot of poking fun at who we are as Islanders. And I did that for a long time. Yeah. And I loved it. But
I mean, A Small Fortune is a pretty big departure from that because this is like a psychological thriller.
It's honestly that's kind of where I started, was psychological thrillers and the horror genre. But then when I started messing around with cameras and I was getting to know like-minded individuals, Jeremy Larder and I really hit it off, and he was really funny and really into comedy.
Yeah, big time.
And I would say I found out I had some comedic chops through just peers.
Right. Yeah.
Graham Putnam, Lenny McPherson.
Yeah,
these guys
totally.
I've been working with for years.
Yeah.
And you know, they're a bit of an inspiration to me. Like I can feel like I'm not that funny, and then go in a room with those guys, and then some of my best material will just start rolling out.
Oh, that's amazing.
I'm in that environment.
Dude,
you know?
That's such a crazy thing about putting different combinations of people together, eh?
Absolutely. Like on my own, not so hot, but but put me in a room with other comedians, and it's like there's a switch, and it just you can create some pretty ridiculous things.
Yeah, that's super handy. Like from a filmmaker's perspective, as like, do you plan on doing more of in that kind of genre moving forward?
I would never say no to developing more stuff with those guys. Never.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
But at the same time, I've got a lot of big ideas that keep me up at night, and those are the things that as my career zigs and zags, I think about, like, what's next for me.
Yeah.
And right now, real estate video seems to be occupying my day to day. But when I get to laying my head down on a pillow at night and trying to go to sleep, that's when I start thinking about miniseries or television show or another feature film.
Right.
And
do you think one of those is speaking to you most right now in terms of you feel, also maybe where there's the most opportunity for the next big step?
Yeah, I know just to go back to A Small Fortune, like that took 10 years of my life.
Oh yeah,
developing
absolutely.
That story. And
I was actually going to ask you about that. So maybe, we can come back to that.
Well, I know what it takes to as an Islander to pull off a production at that level.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I want to do that again the way I did it before.
Right. Yeah.
And if I do it again, then some things need to change. And I just don't know what those things are that need to change. But I know that you can't stop. You can't, like, it's in me. It's like storytelling and creating and finding beauty and art that's all around us. I can't turn that switch off. So it's always going to be there, and whether or not I take it and use it and develop something new or work on some old ideas, like, it's just always going to be happening.
Yeah.
But developing something and then actually making something is not as easy as it sounds.
Well, I mean, you were right from the beginning, because you wrote A Small Fortune. So when you think about the process in that, you wrote it, you directed it, maybe just a little brief synopsis for the audience, because 10 years, that sounds like a long time, but what was happening? What was happening there? Like, even just like a few of the key moments along the way. Like,
first it's the spark of an idea.
Yeah.
My whole career, the past 20 years of my life, have been kind of learning the craft of filmmaking, learning the craft of storytelling, and trying to figure out how the hell does someone on PEI make a feature film. And a lot of things need to happen in order for someone like me to go and make a feature film. You got to raise a lot of money. And you got to make a lot of partnerships outside of Prince Edward Island, and that doesn't happen overnight. That takes a long time. Meanwhile, I'm trying to figure out not only what my story's about, but who is this story for. Trying to figure out your market,
right?
Who's your audience, and then studying films that audience loves. And you, as the filmmaker or the writer or the director, needs to have a strong understanding of that genre of story you're trying to tell. So there's a lot of studying and research that goes into that, and then you gotta know what audiences are expecting. Yeah. And it's your job as a writer director to it's a crime thriller mystery. It's about a bag of money that washes up on shore, and a blue collar Irish moss worker who's about to have a child finds it, could really use the money and decides to keep it a secret. You know, that's the basis of the synopsis of the movie. But then there's lots of layers of PEI heritage and what it means to provide for your family, and the power money has over all of us. Is another theme that I think is important.
Yeah, I think it's actually kind of interesting. One of the things about the story is it right now on PEI, the feeling that I'm getting in a lot of ways is that there are a lot of job opportunities, and there's a lot of there's a lot of opportunity, but I feel like historically through a lot of my life that hasn't as much been the case. And the narrative in your story kind of there is this implication that it's hard to get a really good paying job on PEI. Do you think that's still the case? I know that's kind of like kind of slightly off topic, but I think it's highly relevant to people kind of interested in living on PEI and that side of things. It's like, and also the way things have changed. Like,
yeah,
what's your take on all that?
Even in the past 10 years, how much PEI has changed, and the workforce, and you know, we're still in a pandemic, and you know, that's really affected things too. The whole work from home scenario. Yeah, I just and now we're, you know, employers trying to get people to return to work, and it's not just here, it's everywhere, and a lot of people are working remotely and working for companies outside of PEI, so there is a lot more opportunity now than there ever has been. But at the same time, you know, you've got a lot of history here and a lot of family here, and you got to look at where you know, tourism and agriculture and aquaculture, and there's a lot of tradesmen here that you know, grown up in the trades, or grew up on a fishing boat. And, you know, if that's what they want to do, if they want to take over the family business or follow in their parents' footsteps, that's their right. And I think that that a lot of those jobs associated with those industries aren't as plentiful.
Right.
And so there are have been more hard times experienced in our lifetime, for sure. And I think that's where the story kind of stems from, is that, you know, if you're living in a city, there's more opportunities for employment than if you're, you know, in the middle of nowhere out in the country.
Yeah, for
and you're living on your family farm, and you're a seasonal worker.
Yeah.
You know, that's where my story takes place.
Yeah, for sure. And Irish moss, that does that industry exist on PEI? Like they use it for some purposes, right? Still,
I mean, well, that's what I'm talking about. Like the history of Irish moss, it used to be a booming industry on PEI.
Right.
And lots of people, lots of families made good money that they could support their families throughout the year off of one season of Irish moss.
Right.
And now it's not really a thing anymore. The Irish moss is gone. It's actually starting to come back, which is kind of like the silver lining here. Is that there has been a recent boom, and you go up west in the summertime and in the fall, you will see more and more people's front yards covered in Irish moss.
Oh, really?
And yeah, it's kind of a surprise, because when I was a kid, everyone's yard had Irish moss in it.
Right.
And then, you know, probably for the past 20 years or so, 30 years, it's kind of died off, and there's not been a lot of industry. The market's still there, but the moss isn't.
Right.
And there's a few reasons why that is, but I'm not a scientist. I can't really speak to it so much. But there was an invasive species. A lot of people call this other moss fufu.
Okay.
I think it's pronounced Fusileria or something like that.
Okay.
And it took over the moss beds.
Oh,
and
wow.
There's lots of fufu out there, but there's no market. You know,
right,
it's not worth nearly as much as the Irish moss.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, yeah, the story's about an Irish moss farmer because his parents were Irish mossers, and they made a good living doing it. And he feels that, you know, he's taken over his family's house, and he's living there with his wife, and they're about to have a baby. And he wants to raise his child the way he was risen. And I think that's a very honest and true PEI story.
Oh, it definitely is.
You know?
Definitely is. Yeah.
And so that's what I wanted to write about.
Yeah, absolutely. And the context of that question was kind of more about like almost like harkening back to real estate in terms of like the way things are changing on PEI. I do want to just brief, just to follow up on that story. Can you tell people kind of where you grew up and like and what life was like there?
Yeah, I mean, I've spent most of my life on Prince Edward Island. I grew up in Stratford, on Langley Road. Is where my parents they built a house there when I was 6 years old, and then it was open field, and It was maybe a dozen homes on Langley Road, and there was lots of place to play, and we had a beautiful view of the Hillsborough River, and I had a great childhood in Stratford, and have lots of great memories. Then I bought a house in 2012, and about 10 years ago, and that was my first and only experience in real estate up until that point. And I live in Charlottetown now, and I've got a family, and I'm an island boy through and through, but I'm not an islander. I was a premature baby and was airlifted to Halifax to be born, and
really?
Spent the first month or so of my life in an incubator.
That's your technically not an islander
so I'm not,
story. That's
I'm not a, like I honestly like I technically can't be an islander, but Nova Scotia can kind of claim me because I was born on their soil.
Oh, well, maybe you get a bit of both there.
So yeah, I guess I got dual citizenship in the Maritimes.
Yeah, it's a really funny rule. It's so exclusionary.
Islanders are so, yeah, I know. It's so specific.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like the Newfoundland way where you kiss a cod and get screeched in, and bam, you're a Newfoundlander.
Yeah,
like,
I like to be honest about it up front.
Yeah, just so there's no messing around.
Yeah.
Disclosure. Do you file some
if
paperwork
you want me
with
at
that?
your house because I'm not a true islander, I'll leave. I don't want to be here if I'm not well.
Yeah, well, you're more than welcome here. That's for sure. Okay, so moving over to real estate, because that's what the podcast's about. I guess.
Sure. Yeah, this isn't about filmmaking.
Yeah, well, although this particular episode is. So maybe one question that would be an interesting place to start is, in a number of my conversations, some that I've actually recorded and haven't released yet, prior to this conversation, one of the themes that comes up in preparing and staging a home is kind of really trying to set it up so it's a blank canvas for whoever wants to move in. So that might mean the current residents, if they want to get the best price for their house and attract the right buyer, they want to depersonalize it. So take down their personal photos, maybe remove some of the, say if you are a fan of a particular sports team or something, take that stuff down, try to make it declutter, clean, all that stuff. And that allows it for the person who's considering going in to buy it. They can then picture themselves in it. Instead of them feeling like a visitor, they can start to picture themselves in it. It makes a lot of sense. But my question for you as a filmmaker and as someone who's so focused on story and on narrative, what the space is for art in your work, and how you take what you've developed as a filmmaker, in this sort of constrained environment where you really want it to, in a way, you're kind of taking some of the, like there is like a sort of like a depersonalization that comes out of it, and how it's sort of a broad question, but basically, is the room for art in this, and how does that apply to your work?
Absolutely. If I couldn't have any sort of artistic integrity in this, I wouldn't be doing it. And I'm only saying that because I wouldn't be satisfied.
Yeah.
But I actually do enjoy the work. I enjoy showing up at someone's house and trying to make it look as beautiful as it can through the camera.
Yeah.
Okay, that part is I'm almost obsessed over it. It's a really fun thing to do for me. But I mean, it's no different than showing up on a film set with 30 people looking at you, ready to make decisions and telling them what to do, and working with a cast and cameras. And the only difference is you're removing the human element. There, I don't have a team of people helping me. I don't have actors to work with. So it's really hard to tell a story, and it's really hard to focus a shot when there's no human in front of your lens, right? So, you know, the first few times I've done these shoots, it's literally just been, you know, how do I make this look good? But then I find, you know, some of the better shoots that I've done in real estate is when I do get to speak with the homeowner and I hear their story and I hear how long they've been there, and I can ask some questions about, like, you know, do you have any kids? Did they grow up in this house? You know, like what kind of heritage are you leaving behind when you sell this place? And those are stories that you don't get to hear as a home buyer. And usually if someone's showing up to shoot your house, they don't necessarily care about those things. But I feel like if I understand the human nature and the connection to the house, then that can inform some of the shots I get. And yes, there's nobody speaking. Yes, there's nobody, you know, pointing things out. But I feel like that's not really needed in a real estate shoot.
Right.
Decluttering things and unpersonalizing your property for someone like me to come in and shoot, that's great when it happens, but it doesn't happen every time.
Right.
So there are challenges, and you know, that just comes from experience, is to, you know, you don't have to shoot everything. You just shoot what looks good. Your job is to market this property and try and get it sold. Yep. So it's kind of a fine line that I'm walking. It's like, I need to sell this place and make it look as best as it can. But at the same time, I want to respect the homeowner and their property and only show it in its best light.
Yeah. So, so what kind of ways would kind of being informed by the heritage of the house, like, would that be like, oh, we actually really love going the campfire out back, and maybe you'd feature that? Or does that come into the way you film, or is it more just sort of inspiration and how you
realtors are really helpful for that too, because you know, nothing makes my job easier than when a realtor shows up at the beginning of my appointments and is like, here are some cool features of this house. You know, maybe there's a laundry chute, or maybe there's a spiral staircase, or maybe there's 5 fireplaces, or there's a cool stucco ceiling, or there's like little features that I might miss or I might not necessarily care about. But then there's other factors with realtors and homeowners that they can tell you things to avoid, like don't go in the basement, don't go in the garage. Okay. But knowing where the sun is going to be. Shooting in overcast days. There are challenges. You know, having a hurricane rip through your province and knock down all these trees, that's been a challenge.
Did you have to shoot during Fiona? Like, how soon after that were you out there shooting?
It was a couple weeks after for me. I don't know about other people, but for me, it was, everything was kind of put on pause while everyone tried their best to clean up. And it's the honest truth is it's a mess out there, and it's really hard. Like, you used to put up a drone and everything looked pretty, but now you put up a drone, everything looks knocked over and dead. Right. So yeah, you I guess the difference is, you know, choosing your angles and thinking things through a little bit more as you're shooting.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about. I mean, having you here, my temptation is just to want to ask you so many questions about your filmmaking, because I've been following it for so long, but just to dive into this real estate side a little bit more, in just a really practical way. Like, can you talk a little bit about what the process is like of working with you? Say if there's a realtor who's like wants to reach out to you, or a homeowner who wants to reach out to you, or however that works, like, you know, maybe the turnaround times, the kind of what they expect, what they get, you know, what you give to them, that kind of thing.
I mean, Capture Property Marketing is the name of my business, and capturepropertymarketing.ca is where you can find me. My contact information is on there. I have an Instagram account if you want to follow along with my misadventures in real estate photography. But it's a, usually a realtor will call me up and they'll ask for my next available appointment to shoot a property. And the first thing I do is I check the weather and give them a few options on, it's usually within the next 2 to 3 days of availability. And then I usually let them choose what day works best for them and their client. And then once we got the day blocked off, then I will check where their house is and try and line it up with where the sun is at that point in the day. So the sun's hitting the front of the house. And if it's overcast, that's even better. And the reason I say that is because the beautiful thing about a sun hitting the front of your house is it looks gorgeous, but then the back of your house is in shade and there's a lot of harsh shadows. And when you go to the back of a property to shoot the back of the house, now you've got the sun hitting your lens and you've got lens flares. And so really when the sun's shining, you've got like 1 or 2 good angles. And when I'm speaking about exterior, and then when you get inside, you've got sun blasting through the windows on one side of your house, and then the back side of your house is in shadow. And so you're constantly dialing in settings on the camera, trying to get the best exposures that you can. And that's fine. But with an overcast day, everything's flat and there are no shadows and everything's exposed nicely. And I just find things look better. There's a different mood to the experience. And I much prefer an overcast day than a sunny day, but at the same time, there's no denying that a beautifully lit front of house shot is priceless, really.
Yeah. So when you're doing that, like, are you, so say if it's hard to get nice lighting on the back, do you still kind of try to include a little bit of it or just try to go with whatever's strongest?
Here's a situation I was in a couple of weeks ago where I showed up to film a house and the sun was at the back of the house. So the back of the house was lit up beautifully. And the front of the house was in shadow. And I was just like, well, when people are shopping around for homes, the first thing they look at is a thumbnail of the front of the house.
Yeah.
And I can't get a properly exposed shot right now because the sun is like right over the roof, blasting in through my lens. So I'm going to have to come back and get this shot tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I figure out a time I can come back, shoot the front of the house. I'll shoot the rest of the house that day. Okay. But I'll come back and I'll get like the most important shot when the sun is in the proper position. So I figured, okay, looks like it'd be around noon that the front of the house will be lit up. I go back, it's still in shadow. So I'm like, oh crap, what do I do now? So I wait another day and go back a third time to get it. And I realized, hey, the sun is like, this house is on the wrong side of the street. Like if it was on the other side of the street, it would be lit up perfectly.
Right.
But this house, this time of year, the sun is so low, it's never going to hit the front of the house.
Right.
So I just waited and did the best I could with the sun in the back. And, shooting on an overcast day, everything, you don't have to worry about the sun.
Yeah.
So I know that got a little off topic, but so a realtor calls me. I book a time that works best for their client and best for the presentation of the house.
Yeah.
And then I go and I show up with all my gear. I usually do a walkthrough with the realtor, but sometimes they don't show up and that's fine too. I usually ask the homeowner to vacate for the shoot. They're welcome to stay. And if they choose to stay, I'll ask that they just remain in one room while I float around the house because I shoot on a few different cameras.
Right.
And they all have their different purposes, but it's just a lot of moving around and I work rather quickly. So instead of asking a homeowner to move 100 times, I'll just say, you stay put and let me move around. Yeah. And the best thing is you just go for a drive and come back in an hour and I'll be done. I'll probably be done. So it takes me about an hour to shoot a house. Yeah. And then when I'm finished, it takes me a couple hours to edit the footage and get it online and make the presentation look as good as it can.
Oh, nice, nice. With that, it's just video you do. You wouldn't do the photos as well, right?
No, that's photos included.
Oh, photos included. Oh, cool. Yeah. Nice, nice. So, so you get that, shoot in the day, you edit it like over the next couple days, or your turnaround times are pretty quick with that, right? Or
you see, this is where like 20 years of filmmaking experience come in really handy, right? Because when you're editing a video for real estate, you only really have one track of audio, and that's usually just music. Right. Sometimes there's a realtor speaking on it, but really the audio side of things is really straightforward. Whereas if you're doing a film production, you've got multiple cameras, multiple microphones, You're trying to sync everything up, and then you're cleaning up audio. I got none of that to worry about. Right. So it's like, I just need to make these shots connect and edit them together to some music and put some graphics on it, and it's done. Right. If I was working with multiple tracks of audio, it would take longer.
Yeah.
But honestly, I'm hired to do a 1 to 2 minute video and shoot some photography, and then make it look as best as it can.
Yeah. So you're able to get this done in a short period of time then.
When I started, it certainly took a lot longer as I was learning the ropes, but I now know like where I should stand with my camera when I enter a room, and what to look out for, what to avoid. And the way my process when I show up on a property, I know as soon as I turn my car off, like what I'm going to do. Like I know, like there is a method to my madness. Yeah. And it all has to do with the pipeline of work, the workflow pipeline. You know, I have one wide angle lens that I use on both a stills camera and a video camera. Yeah. And usually, you know, I'll show up and I'll put the drone up first, depending on weather. If it's raining or something else, it might not go up at all. If it's too windy, it might not go up at all. But when I do the drone, I get a quick sense of like the community, or if it's waterfront property, I get a sense of the beauty and like how special this place is. And then it kind of puts me in a mindset for when I go in, and then I'll do all my interior videos first, and then I get a lay of the land. And the way I shoot is like, I know I'm not going to do one bedroom here and then the kitchen. There's a flow, and it's like as if you were holding my hand and I was walking you through the house. Like, okay, here's where you go. If you take a right at the top of the stairs, and we're going to loop around through the dining room, through the kitchen, then we're going to go down the hall, and here's the bathroom, here's the bedrooms. So it's not like edited to the point where you don't know where you are in the house. I try and keep it very, very, very geographical, I guess is the word that I want to use. Like, like I'm trying to lay out the geometry of the house as you're watching the video, walking through virtually.
So you always know where you are as you're going.
Yeah, so it's not like I'm showing you the master bedroom and then I'm going to show you the downstairs bathroom. Right. You know, it's just there's no point in doing it that way. You could do it that way. It's just not the way I do it. Yeah. And then when I get it home and I get it on the computer, usually my shots, the order I shot it in, it's already there in the right sequence. I just got to find the best moments of every shot and lay it out on a timeline and put some music on it and put some graphics on it. And then it's done. Yeah. So I got to color grade it. I guess that's where the technical side comes in. Yeah. And that's probably the hardest part is, you know, matching whites, getting your tones correct. And, you know, and that's where, like, if one side of the house is really bright and then the back side of the house is really dark, trying to find those levels so it all kind of looks consistent. As a filmmaker, you're kind of used to critics and people analyzing your work. Yeah. And in this industry, it's just like you almost have like a magic wand. Right. And like everyone's just happy that you've created something for them. Right. So as far as like me staying up at night worrying about like what people think of my work, that I've never really done that, but that's just a side effect of, you know, being in the film industry. Right. And you've made a feature film and now you're going to get analyzed and criticized about the work you've created. That was a fun experience, which I'll save that for another podcast. Right. But with real estate, it's almost like, you know, you deliver the goods and it goes online and you never hear anything back. Right. And I kind of like that too.
That is kind of nice. Yeah. So like, I mean, like when I think about it with your expertise and like what you bring, it's kind of like your experience is very large for this application. Like I kind of feel like you, like
I'm overqualified.
You're kind of overqualified. But that's really cool. And it kind of makes me, that's why so much of what I want to ask is about like the fusion of art and this, because it's just, I feel like,
well, I'll tell you how, to me, yeah, it's certainly not as satisfying as, you know, working with your friends and creating a feature film.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to come close. That was like one of the best experiences of my life. And I hope I get it again someday.
Yeah.
But what it is good for is, you know, it's keeping my technical skills very sharp. I'm using a camera and an editing suite every day. I'm still learning the industry and the business of real estate. And the more, you know, I look behind the curtain, the more interested I am. You know, there's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot to learn. And I'm comfortable knowing what I'm good at, and you know, my skills have certainly developed over 20 years of fooling around with cameras and editing gear. But there's you know, it's a job, and there's a demand for the skills I have, and I'd be foolish not to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Interesting. So whenever you've gone into these situations, when you've had kind of realtors dealing with their client, trying to get the best out of that house, have you kind of I guess we talked about depersonalizing, declutter, cleaning up. Is there anything you're looking for as a filmmaker going in that you think would give people an advantage to kind of make things look best?
Yeah, I think certainly this time of year, like we're recording this, it's late November.
Yeah.
There's only so much daylight in the day. So I find like after like 3 o'clock, I'm like, I can't really shoot after 3. Like the sun is so low. Things look good if it's like magic hour. Things always look good at magic hour. But again, you've got a low sun that's only lighting up half of a property. And I think that picking the right time of day is probably the biggest thing you can do to make your property look good.
Wow.
Work with your realtor and have them work with their photographer to, you know, especially on some of these big ticket homes.
Yeah.
Weather is essential. And the time of day you shoot it is essential. And so that's step one.
Okay.
Is work with Mother Nature.
Yep.
And use Mother Nature to your advantage. You know, you never like, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you're scheduled to shoot, and maybe the homeowners are seasonal and they're not even here.
Yeah.
And you got to go shoot in the rain. You get those. And you got to do them. And it doesn't matter. I'll still try my best. As soon as I turn my camera on, I'm in pro mode. I'm ready to do my job and to the best I can. Step one is Mother Nature. And then step two would be, you know, making sure that things look nice to you. I don't mean try and make your property look like it's out of a magazine. If you can, great. That's makes my job easier. But as long as things are off the counters, 1 or 2 small appliances like a coffee pot, that's fine. But don't have like all your mixers and all your soda streams and your microwaves and toasters and all that stuff out, because then it can look cluttered. If you've got lots of counter space and you can have all those appliances out and it still looks decluttered, great. But chances are you don't. So yeah, empty counters. Flowers go a really long way.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Because a lot of times, most homes don't have a lot of color. A lot of grays, a lot of whites, a lot of off-whites. Flowers are a great way to make a room pop. So, you know, get a bouquet of flowers and put it on your countertop. I will focus my camera on that, and it will make your house look great.
Oh, nice.
Another tip would be, if it's a nice day and it's not November, I always like opening up the windows and letting the curtains move around a bit. I find any way to inject motion into an otherwise very stale and flat video is just a cinematic tool, right? Everything is done in slow motion anyway, so like having a curtain move just makes a home look dreamy, you know? So same with ceiling fans. If a ceiling fan is going like 1,000 miles an hour and it's shaking, that looks terrible. So ceiling fans off, and I'll go, before I hit record on my camera, I'll go and just tap it with my hand and make it spin just a little bit.
Okay.
So then when I do a reveal shot, or if I'm entering a room and that fan's just spinning so slowly, it makes it look a bit more cinematic than if it's just dead. You know?
This is good stuff.
What other tips? There's common sense ones, like, you know, hand towels and rags, face cloths around your sink. Get rid of those. Toilet seats down. Toothbrushes, any personal items like shampoo bottles and stuff, like, get rid of that stuff. A lot of people think their staircases are shelves, like just setting stuff on the steps.
Right.
And that's a big no-no. So get stuff off, like, and don't set things down. Make sure everything has a place. And if it doesn't, throw it in the garage, throw it in the basement, get rid of it for the shoot. And
probably for viewings too. I mean, if you're doing this, especially if you're if you expect a lot of viewings in a short period of time, I mean, these seem like something that, like, just someone being able to come in and it be really tight. I mean, you have to live your life.
Yeah. But other than that, you know, make sure the beds are made. And yeah, just clean your house as best you can. Things you don't have to worry about that I see a lot of people stressing about.
Oh, here we go.
And I'm just like, don't worry. Like, if your windows aren't like clean, my camera's not going to see it. There's so much light coming in through a window that the sensors on my camera are not focused on that. I can go and focus on it, but there's no point because I'm shooting so wide. I want to show the whole room, not a detail on a window.
Yeah.
So don't worry. If your windows are filthy, yeah, give them a once over.
Yeah.
Same with floors. Like, people like vacuuming when I get there, and it's just like, you know, I'm not going to see crumbs. My cameras are good, but they're not that good.
Right.
So don't stress too much about, you know, obviously you want to have a clean floor, but, you know, if it's not spotless, don't worry.
Yeah.
Pets. I love animals, and I totally leave it up to the homeowner if they want to take their pet with them or leave them while I'm shooting. But, you know, if they leave them and I film them, then it's going to look funny and it may hurt a potential buyer.
Yeah.
They might see a cat and be like, oh, there's cats in there. There's probably, you know, piss in the carpet or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why I would advise, and most realtors advise, you know, put the pet in a kennel, or put them out in the garage, or put them in the car while Adam's here shooting.
Yeah.
Because yeah, there's sometimes it's unavoidable, especially cats. They like to follow me around. And you know what? I've stepped in more dog shit doing this job than I would have ever imagined.
Oh,
so
okay.
If you're listening and you've got a dog and you know a photographer is going to be walking around your property, maybe go out with the shovel and pick up before I get there.
I'm sure that has happened.
Because I'm looking through a viewfinder and a camera. I'm not looking where I'm stepping. You know?
Oh yeah,
you know?
So
I'm trusting I'm walking on
rinsable
grass.
Footwear for your job. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. That's one of those sides of pet ownership. Probably, I mean, I think a lot of people who live out in the country where there's a lot of trees around and they don't get a lot of people on their yard, they're not necessarily as careful. Every time I feel like I've stepped in dog turd, it's been kind of out in the country that I can think of. Yeah,
I mean, if I had the luxury of letting my dog out and letting him go poop and not picking
just
it
run
up,
around.
I would totally be that guy. But the truth is, I live in town, my dog goes on a leash and poops when we go for a walk and pick it up. And put it in the garbage.
Yeah, that's my life as well with Coco.
Yeah.
What's your dog's name?
My dog's Penny.
Penny. Okay, cool. Nice. And how old's Penny?
Penny's 2, and she's like, I don't want to call her the best dog I've ever had because I feel like that's an insult to the other dogs I've owned in my life. But as far as like good dogs go, like,
nice.
Penny's like, she's so good with the kids.
Oh, nice. May and Oliver like Penny.
Oh yeah. She's just great. And she's the smartest dog I've ever owned. That's for sure.
Oh, that's nice. So, okay. So we got through the pets. Is there any other tips for people when they're listing it, just to make it so it pops? I mean, I thought that the curtain thing is pretty cool.
You know, all the lights on and lamps on is something that I was kind of trained and told that that's how it's done. and it works. But I've also shot homes without power.
Right.
In fact, the first couple of homes I did after this Fiona storm, I was shooting in homes without power, and I noticed just natural light coming in through the windows and changing some exposure settings on my camera. That also looked really good, you know?
Right, yeah.
Like you don't need lights to make homes look good.
Okay, nice.
You need light, but you don't need lights on.
Right, yeah, provided you have adequate
windows, yeah. And the two homes I shot that didn't have power, it was a beautiful day, sun was blasting through the windows, and you couldn't tell that there was lights on or off.
Oh, cool.
And so, yeah, so now I'm starting to think, you know, there's lots of different ways to approach real estate, videography, and photography. There's no right or wrong way. There are a few hard and fast rules that you need to abide by, but I think technology is at a place now where you can turn a camera on and shoot a home. And as long as you know how to use that technology, you can manipulate an image so much now and so quickly and efficiently in 2022.
I can't, but you
Yes,
can.
but if you've been doing it for 20 years and you've seen the software advance over that time, things I wish I could have done 20 years ago, I can do in a click of a button now.
Right, yeah.
So,
oh, that's super cool.
There's a lot of technical skills, but honestly, it all starts with the home itself and the preparation that goes into like any 5 minutes that you can put into making your home look better is going to look 1,000 times better on my end.
Nice.
So yeah, it's worth the effort to tidy up and clean up. And if you could do that before I get there, that would be great.
Definitely, because so you're not waiting around.
Yeah, because there's a lot. It doesn't happen very often, but there are times where I show up to shoot and a home isn't ready, and I have to walk.
Yeah,
it's like I can't do my job with everyone. You know, there was one time I showed up, and God love them, there was a full family in the house with kids running around, and like the mom was cooking in the kitchen, and they didn't know what I was doing there. They were like, "You're here to take pictures, right?" And I was just like, "Yeah, but I can't because the kitchen's a mess right now, and if you want to sell your home, this is not, you know, I can't make this look good without time. And time is something I just don't have right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I got another shoot in an hour. So
yeah,
I'll be back when you guys are ready.
Yeah,
and in that case, it was an accident. Like they had no idea.
Right.
And and so I worked with the realtor to make sure that everything was ready. And when I came back a few days later, the place was spotless. They were educated. They knew what to do at that point. So a lot of it is communication with the realtors and communication with me to know what to expect.
And this would be something that would probably really be an advantage of someone working with an experienced realtor who has
absolutely. And a lot of times there's a lot of new realtors, more now than ever, that just need to maybe, you know, come with me on my first shoot and see what I do and learn the process.
Oh, that's cool.
But work with your client to make sure that the house is ready. Because, you know, if it's not, it can take a long time. If I have to worry about every room, and, you know, I don't get paid to clean or pick up. I get paid to hit record on my camera and make things look good. There are other people that have the cleaning jobs and the staging jobs. And, you know, maybe I'll get to that at some point, but I've got no passion in cleaning and staging right now.
Yeah, exactly. So that's probably not going to be the main focus.
It's not my main focus.
Yeah, with changes right now with interest rates and everything, do you think, what's your gut feeling about kind of the amount of listings that are going up and that kind of thing? I know your kind of work ends at time, just when it's listed, your work on the project is done, you move on to the next. So I don't know how much you kind of follow up on that side of things.
Yeah,
but.
I mean, so I spent 2 years at Century 21.
Yeah.
And that was such a wonderful experience because I got that was like my education in real estate, right? And I learned a ton about the business there.
And they're very results oriented.
Yeah. those guys taught me a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and I've got a lot of respect for them.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing now that I'm on my own is that I am missing a lot of that business side. So I don't see, how fast a home is selling because it's not part of my business anymore. You know, as you said, my job kind of ends when the house gets listed.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to know that information, I'll have to check back in with the realtor.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when I was working exclusively for Century 21,
Mm-hmm.
that information was coming across my desk every day,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay, you can take this video down, or this is sold, or we need more content for this place.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I'm on my own, I don't get that information anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's there if I want to dig it up, but honestly, yeah, like I care about doing the work that I'm hired to do.
Yeah.
The realtor side of the business is certainly interesting, but it's the same as cleaning. It's like, that's not my passion. That's their passion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I respect that. And I'm here to make them look good.
Yeah, totally.
Like I enjoy when a realtor feels like they're a rock star because they got a piece of media that makes them look like they know what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is, and if they refer me to someone else and say, give Adam a call, he can make you look good, then I know I'm doing a good job.
Oh, nice. Well, there'll be some realtors watching this podcast, so hopefully,
yeah, call me.
Oh, nice. Okay, let me see. I just want to look through a couple of my questions here. Yeah, I mean, some of these are like, I guess actually I was going to step back and look at A Small Fortune again for just a second.
I could talk about A Small Fortune.
You gave a little bit of a
years.
You gave a little bit of a introduction of how it got started. You having the idea, you writing it. Then there was A Blessing from the Sea, which won an award. Can you talk about A Blessing from the Sea for just a second?
Yeah, Blessing from the Sea is a short film. It's 17 minutes long. It's on YouTube. You can look it up and watch it. But the purpose of A Blessing from the Sea was to showcase, well, it had a lot of different purposes, but what it is like the baby proof of concept story of A Small Fortune. So I wrote the screenplay for A Small Fortune, and then I submitted it into a few different programs. And one of the programs it got into was out of Ontario. It was called the Harold Greenberg Fund. And with that, we got a fairly substantial grant to go and make a short film based off of a feature concept, which was perfect. So I got together with my producers and my writing partner, Jason Arsenault, and we were like, how do we tell this, pretty epic 90-minute movie in 12 pages or less? And so scratched my head for many nights trying to figure out how to tell, a piece of that story. And its job was to introduce the characters, introduce the world, introduce the tone, introduce the story of an Irish mosser that finds a bag of cash.
Yeah, and that one, it's kind of cool to see how it developed, because I like both A Blessing from the Sea and A Small Fortune. I mean, A Small Fortune, it does benefit so much from having kind of the budget that it had and all that stuff. But A Blessing from the Sea was pretty cool in terms of like the cast that was in it too. I mean, Lenny Gallant, and Lenny McPherson.
The Lennys. Lenny Gallant, Lenny McPherson, Joel Thomas Hines, Jonathan Torrens, and Bridie McLean.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. It was, again, I was super lucky. And the thing with casting Lenny Gallant as a bad guy was, for some reason, in my brain, the actor Sean Bean?
I have to look him up here.
Look him up.
Okay, I'm going to look at Sean Bean while you talk.
I found that, sorry, how
do you spell that?
SeanBean.
Oh, yeah,
Sean
okay,
Bean.
yeah. Oh, yeah, this guy.
Yeah, that guy.
Oh, yeah. So this is the
he was
Game
in Lord of the
Thrones,
Rings, Game of Thrones.
Ned Stark, right?
Yeah, he's been around the block for many years.
Yeah.
Okay, I think Lenny Gallant looks very similar to Sean Bean. In fact, I've got a photo that I'll try and dig up, and you can bring it up on the screen. during this.
Okay, this is gonna get a little.
And I think Lenny Grant,
I'm not a big editor, but I'll do my
PEI
best.
Sean Bean. Okay.
Okay.
And just visually. Right? I didn't know if Lenny could act, but I knew he was a performer, so I didn't think it was that big of a stretch.
Okay.
And so
how did you
I literally called him up.
Really?
I said, you don't know me, but I'm a big fan of your work, and I'm a filmmaker, and I'm a Acadian, and I was just like trying to sweet talk him, and I said, I've written this short film, and I'm wondering if you want to act in it as a bad guy. And he was just like, say no more. You know? He
really?
Was like, I always wanted to be a bad guy.
No way.
And so I was like, no, read the script so you know what's involved. Like, people are going to get hurt in this movie.
Yeah.
And he read it and he's just like, yeah, sign me up.
I thought he had a great
and I was just like, I can't pay you a lot of money for this. You know, like, you're really doing me a favor here. Yeah, I can pay you some money, but it's not going to be near what you're worth.
His music show money. Yeah.
And he was just like, no, but I was like, you know, I'll put you up. I'll get you your own cottage during production, and we'll feed you, and then we'll pay you whatever we can afford.
Okay, nice.
At the back end,
nice.
But I need you for like 2 days.
Yeah.
Up west, and he's just like, yeah, I'll do it.
Right.
And then when he found out that you know, Jonathan Torrens was, and how did I get Jonathan?
How did you get Jonathan Torrens? Yeah.
First of all, anyone who knows Jonathan Torrens knows he's the nicest human being in the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've met Jonathan Torrens.
He's a goddamn legend, and everyone loves him. And you know, if there's one takeaway from Jonathan Torrens is like, being a decent human being can get you very far in this life.
Yeah, big time.
So I was working on a Cavendish Farms commercial.
Okay.
For a production company out of Nova Scotia, and they were filming up in O'Leary.
Okay.
And they were trying to appease the Irvings. So they wanted to get like a bunch of directors' chairs up for when the Irvings came to set. They could, you know, feel like they were like film producers.
Okay.
And I was a PA. I was literally driving around getting people coffee.
Production assistant.
And, production assistant. Yep. And then one day, the production manager said, Adam, I need you to go to Nova Scotia and pick up an RV. And drive a 40-foot RV back to set. It's going to be our makeup and hair trailer. And I was just like, really? For a commercial? Like, it's pretty, it's like, yeah, it's Jonathan Torrens' house. Do you know Jonathan Torrens? I was like, I know of him, but
yeah,
J-Rock, right? And
J-Rock.
And they're like, yeah, his RV's in his driveway. Go get it. And I was like, and Jason Arsenault, who's the producer on Blessing from Seeing a Small Fortune, he was doing a PA with me, and we were both driving around.
Oh, okay.
And Jason had to pick up a vehicle as well, a much smaller RV, and drive back. And neither of us have ever driven an RV before, so we were like terrified.
Yeah.
And let alone I have to pick up Jonathan Torrens' his own personal like family RV and drive back. So when I went over there, and he was giving me the keys and he was asking about who I am, I was just like, oh, I'm a filmmaker and I'm an Islander, and didn't tell him I was born in Nova Scotia. But I played the Islander card hard and said, I'm an independent filmmaker, and I've got this crazy idea, and I got this budget now, and it's financed, and I'm looking for an actor, and I've written a part that's kind of, you know, a comedic relief role. Mm-hmm. And if you would entertain reading it and considering it, you're just like, yeah, I'm in.
Nice.
I was like, no. He's like, you're making a film in PEI, you're from PEI. Yeah. I'm from PEI. I'm in. Whatever you need. And so it was an easy sell.
I mean, I feel like probably most of the audience knows who Jonathan Torrens is, but did you watch Street Sense and then Jonavision?
Yes.
Of course.
Yes. Yeah. Like, I grew up on the CBC. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, I remember Jonathan Torrens coming to like a Jonavision launch party at CBC Charlottetown.
Oh.
And for some reason I was there, and I was like 13, 14 years old. Mm-hmm. And there was like free pizza or whatever. And me and my friends were like just eating pizza and there for a balloon or whatever. And he came over and like sat down and chatted with us. And I just thought that was so cool.
Oh yeah.
You know, there's a guy on TV that, you know, I respect and I think is funny. And he's here like just a regular dude. Mm. And, so my first impression of Jonathan Torrens was great from the get-go. And then when he came to PEI, he was like, you know, he brought butter tarts for everyone on the crew.
Yeah,
and
of course he did.
He was just like making everyone feel so good. And I was just like, man, you know, if I can be half the man this guy is.
I know, right? You know? I find it inspiring too. Years ago, I I was working at Music PEI for a little bit, and we had this idea of asking Jonathan Torrens to host the awards show. And I literally messaged him on Facebook, and he was into it. And when he came, he was just like, "Who is this person?" And he just made everything work. And he worked with like some of the local people, Mike Carver, Fraser McCollum, maybe Lenny, I can't remember. I think probably, but to write the comedy for the show to make sure it was all very current and relevant. And it was a hit. Like,
yeah, I remember.
It. You were at that one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He nailed it.
Yeah.
That night.
Yeah.
He did. And there were a lot of local people involved too in helping write what he did, but he put it all out there. That was really great. So what did it feel like to see A Small Fortune in like Cineplex?
Right. So yeah, it had it was in Cineplex for over a month.
Yeah.
Which was just the fact that it played in a Cineplex was like mind blowing.
And then it kept selling tickets like locally here.
And then it kept selling tickets. And then it played in other cities. And Toronto, I was just like, oh my God.
Up in Newfoundland too.
But it was just
Summerside, Charlottetown, yeah.
The reason I stuck with it for 10 years was because I knew it was good. I knew it was a story worth telling. Yeah. And so the surprise it wasn't a surprise knowing that people were connecting to it and appreciating that it was an island story and going to see it and then telling their friends, you got to see this movie. That means so much to me.
Yeah.
Because that's what I designed it for. I had the audience in the back of my head when I was writing it, when I was directing it. Even in the editing, which was done in Newfoundland, everything about it was built for an audience. But it was a very personal story for me.
Yeah.
A lot of what happens in that story is based on my family's history and the Acadian culture up west. So, I wanted to do right by my family and do right by the Acadians. And now that that's off my soul, or, it was a weight on me, a creative weight for most of my adult life.
Wow.
And now that it's out there and it's off, it's just like, look, now I'm doing real estate videos. Like my career is zigged and zagged. So I've been around the world. I got to do so many things.
Yeah, all these film festivals and
film festivals. My work for many years with Michael Smith. I traveled with him and learned how to cook from doing this. So now I'm like the cooking world, the film world, the real estate world. It's just a natural progression of like the skills and the industries and the people I meet. It's at the end of the day, it's just food on the table. But I might as well be using the skills I have and making people happy along the way.
Yeah. What maybe before we go, I mean that feels like a pretty awesome endpoint.
It does. That's it. It's
over. Is there anything else you want to say before we go? I mean, well, and then maybe take an opportunity to remind people how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, I think the real estate industry and you realtors that are watching this, like you guys have much more on the line than I do. But I would just, if you ever want to work with me, just consider me as like a tool in your tool belt, because having professional manager media for your listings is only going to make you look like a professional. You don't want to list with a cell phone camera shot. You want to list with your best foot forward, and you want to be able to show the media you've created from one listing to a potential seller on your next listing. Right. If you're being interviewed, you want to be able to say, and as far as media goes, here's what I can provide for you. And show them my work, and know that when it comes time to sell their home, it won't be an amateur cell phone shot with the guy in the mirror.
Right. Yeah.
It's going to be...
Which it does seem to happen sometimes, doesn't it? You look at some listings, some pretty basic attempts.
So spend a couple bucks, and, my rates are very fair. It's in my best interest to do my best work, and it's in your best interest to do your best work.
Yeah, for sure.
So
And so for them getting a hold of you one more time, what's your website again?
CapturePropertyMarketing.ca.
Awesome. And I'll put that in the show notes and the video description and stuff.
Sure.
If someone wants to just go down and click.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming in and
thanks for having me and making me feel like I am worthy of being a guest on your show.
Oh man. Oh, it's so cool that you're able to come in and talk about this. So thanks, man. And to be able to have this real estate show and be able to have this filmmaker in just so happens to work out. So I get to have an interesting conversation about film injected into the
I could talk about filmmaking all day.
Yeah. Awesome, man.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Chattel Fixtures PEI Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, David Cyrus MacDonald. If you want to reach out to me for any reason, please visit chattelfixtures.com to find my contact information, show notes, etc. We're currently looking for diverse and interesting guests. If you would like to have a conversation with me, or if there is anyone you would like to hear me speak with, or have an idea for the show, let me know. Get in touch through the website or tweet at me at Chattel Fixtures. We're currently seeking out relevant sponsors with solid reputations, serving customers, particularly in some way related to the PEI real estate market. If that sounds like you, get in touch with me if you want to support great, positive conversations about real estate happening right here in PEI. Visit chattelfixtures.com to learn more. Be sure to subscribe to Chattel Fixtures PEI Real Estate Podcast and see you in the next episode.